Hello, and welcome to another episode of Unworthy History. Here today, we're bringing you more unworthy history that you won't see on the History Channel. We're talking about the history of Russian colonialism in the Baltic States, particularly under the Soviet era. So I'm going to conclude my sort of mini-series reading an article from this Lithuanian Quarterly of the summer of 1964. It basically covers some of the experience of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. Those are the Baltic states under Russian imperialism in the Soviet Union. A word must be separately said about the Soviet suppression of religion. The communists, of course, persecute the churches as their main ideological competitor, which they cannot tolerate. In the Baltic republics, they have closed down many churches, deported the clergy, curtailed or forbidden religious services, made church attendance grounds for dismissal from jobs, choked off the training of new priests and ministers. However, in addition to purely ideological communistic grounds, they have political reasons for persecuting the churches. The Catholic and the Lutheran churches are the oldest national institutions and the only ones that preserve the historic continuity of the Lithuanian, Latvian, or Estonian culture and traditions. They are identified with native nationalism and therefore are an enemy to the Soviet state. The Soviet suppression of religion may be added, stands in sharp contrast to the tolerant attitude toward local religion displayed by the Western European colonial powers. The second phase of Soviet social engineering deals with a positive inculcation of the youth with desirable Soviet characteristics and with their integration into the Russian world. All of this begins at school, where from kindergarten, children are taught the virtues of Russia. Teaching of Russian begins with the second grade, and the number of hours given to its study in the junior and senior years in high school and is greater than the equivalent for the native languages. Since 1959, subjects of Republic history and geography are no longer offered separately, but in a smaller part of the general courses on Soviet history and geography. In Latvia and Estonia, a system of teaching Baltic and Russian children under the same roof, though in different classrooms, has been introduced. According to Soviet data, in the early 1960s, 250 such schools function in Latvia. In Estonia, this has begun in 24 secondary schools, and as yet there is no record of such schools in Lithuania. In other words, in Latvia and Estonia, bilingualism has already been extended to schools. Mixing with the Russians is further promoted through tourism, sports, student exchanges. Young adults are encouraged to join the so-called multinational construction projects and to form ethnically mixed families. The youth also have been pressured to join the pioneers and the Komsomolets. Although the percentage of young communists in the Baltic republics, like the percentage of party members, is still smaller than the Soviet average. In Lithuania, for example, their number has reached a figure of over 209,000, which represents a 100% increase in the last 10 years. The Komsomol serves not only as an instrument for the ideological indoctrination, but also for the integration of the youth into the Russian culture and community. Ideologically, in the late 50s and early 60s, the regime has been relying for indoctrination on a systematically and continuously conducted campaign of atheism, which has been developed into a propaganda system all of its own. The colossal Soviet investment of time and money and the engagement of the entire institutional machinery is available to a totalitarian government. This effort of changing the national identity of the Balts shows better than any official pronouncements that the regime takes this endeavor very seriously and proceeds with the production of the Russianized new Soviet man in a planned and systematic manner. This Soviet undertaking is an experiment in social engineering unequaled in its boldness and designed by any modern imperialist moves, be it the Germanization policies of the Kaiser's empire or the Russianization by the Tsars. Conducted under laboratory-like conditions of physical and cultural isolation, this effort is expected to complete the Russianization that cannot be accomplished by physical colonization of the Baltic area. Ironically enough, however, it is exactly in this endeavor that the Soviet achievement has been the smallest. Although inroads have been made, somewhat more so in Latvia and Estonia than in Lithuania, the Soviets have not succeeded in Russianizing the Baltic communities, and nationalism in the Baltic republics is reported to still be very strong. This means that the Soviets are far from creating a melting pot situation that would easily facilitate assimilation. The greatest danger to the ethnic Baltic identity remains the physical colonization resulting from the more or less imperialistically motivated economic policies. Under present circumstances, the Balts still can resist cultural Russian imperialism, and it is reasonable to expect them to continue this resistance for a prolonged period of time. It would be fatally impaired, however, if Moscow succeeded in reducing the Lithuanians, Latvians, and Estonians to minorities in their own lands. Professor Seton Watson suggests that the Soviet treatment of nations ruled by Moscow within the Soviet borders be labeled imperialistic instead of colonial. The use of the word really is not important. Colonial is simply more contemporary and comparative. Thus, it is more functional and therefore preferable. It is essential, however, to note that both signify exercise of power by a foreigner in the interests of the foreigner. The Baltic experience furnishes ample evidence to show that Soviet nationality policy is such. According to an apt appraisal by sociologist Professor Alex Inkels, no amount of Soviet achievement can obscure the basic fact that this policy has constituted a forceful imposition of social, political, and economic forms by a powerful center upon a host of colonial subjects. Soviet colonialism certainly is different from the traditionally European. Together with their undesirable totalitarian system, the Soviets promote institutions and improvements, for example, industries and education, that the old-type colonialists were slow to grant, but that are desired by any progressive nation and envied by the newly developing countries of Asia or Africa. However, the Soviet Union furthers these material improvements of civilization without regard to the welfare of the nations it rules, without respect to their wishes and will. Indeed, Moscow expects through this process to destroy the very identities of nations it claims to be improving. So that is the end of this chapter, this article really. Again, this article, it was called Soviet Colonialism in the Baltic States, a note on the nature of modern colonialism. See, of course, we've heard a lot about decolonization and things like that, and Western colonialism has gotten plenty of heat over the past few years, for its faults or the cavils of its critics, basically. But here, the author of this article is drawing a distinction between that and really a different form of colonialism that the Russians practice. And so they state that it's more like imperialism rather than colonialism. And it does certainly seem like that, particularly with what is going on in Ukraine right now. So hopefully this set of videos I've done on colonial aggression and or Soviet aggression in the Baltic states has shed light on some of the history of that region that's very relevant to what's going on now with Russia invading Ukraine. So if you'd like to see more episodes like this, then be sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you next time on Unworthy History.